We're just a few hours away from Chandrayaan-3's historic landing on the moon. India's Chandrayaan-3 mission is progressing smoothly for a lunar touchdown at 6:04 p.m. today. India is pushing for exploration of the south pole of the moon, a move which could prove to be a giant leap for mankind in space exploration. If all goes as planned, India will enter a select group of nations which have touched down on the surface of the moon. But a soft landing on the moon is no easy feat. What does this mission entail? What about the final stages of this mission? And what does this mean for space exploration going forward? To discuss this, we have with us Mr. Manish Purohit, former ISRO scientist. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Sir, to begin with, what can you tell us of the progression of the Chandrayaan-3 so far and its current status?
See, right now we are in the orbit that is 25 kilometers by 134 kilometers, and when we'll be around 2.5 hours before our final descent phase, then they will be, decision making will be done. It will be committed because once everything is observed and analyzed, and ISRO finds that okay, fine, today the conditions are perfect for soft landing, then they are going to commit it into the that autonomous mode. And in that autonomous mode, once we enter in that particular part at 6:04, that time, those next 17 seconds will be very crucial because onboard computer will take over all the instructions and will not be able to interrupt it in between. We'll be just the spectators of that all that big extravaganza. So what will happen there will be initially we'll be moving very fast. Our spacecraft will be cruising at a speed of around 1600 meters per second. Gradually, that will be brought down to one fourth of its speed. We will call it rough braking phase. In that particular point, we will be covering around 700 kilometers of distance on the lunar terrain first, and we will be coming down from 25 kilometers to altitude of around 7 kilometers, and we'll be calibrating all our equipments there, all our sensors, all our cameras, everything will be tested at that particular point of time. After that, there will be attitude hold phase. That phase is important because once we have calibrated all our sensors, all our meters, all our actuators, then next phase will be comparing the terrain. The images that we have on board will be compared with the real-time images, and AI will be taken help of to finalize right we are on the right track, we are going the right way, we are approaching the proper landing site that has been finalized way before when we were planning the mission. That will be for around 10 seconds. After that, there will be the fine braking phase. Fine braking phase means we'll gradually bring our lander to a standstill. It will be hovering around 800 meters from the ground, from the lunar surface. Again, the next phase will be again testing our sensors, measuring the height, measuring the velocity components. So that part will be calibrated and will move down to a height of 150 meters above the lunar terrain. There will be a test. We call it go or no go test. What happens there will be there's an lander hazard detection avoidance camera. So if that camera finds something unusual on the lunar terrain, which may hamper the soft landing, which may create a hazard for the soft landing situation, it will create a no-go condition. And in a no-go condition, our lander will move forward, backward, sideways, whichever it finds the proper conditions for landing. It will move that way
Right.
around 150 meters and try to have a touchdown. Now, why I'm telling all this that this has to be committed first because if ISRO finds that today's conditions are not that much convenient for a proper landing, we have a reserved site. We have one more
Hmm.
possibility, and that will be available on 27th of August. So today's 23rd of August. If everything goes
Right.
fine, if ISRO thinks right, we are in the right orbit, we have right parameters, we are going to commit it. This is going to be communicated to the world community maybe around 2 3 hours before we get into that particular phase.
So I also wanted to ask you, how does and to what extent does this mission contribute to India's space economy?
Oh yes, 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 yes. It is going to have a big impact because we are going to become the first country to soft land on the southern polar region of the moon, and so many countries are trying that, and we'll be the first one to achieve that. So it will be, in other words, it will be like ISRO will be saying, India will be saying, let's come, let's collaborate, let's be partners, let's do some projects for you all. If you want to explore space more, we are ready there. We have the technology, we have the confidence, and we have just demonstrated how to soft land on moon, how to run a rover on the moon, and how to communicate back, how to run experiments. So if you talk about the lower Earth orbit part where the maximum business is going to happen in upcoming years, so if we can achieve something like of that particular sort of we are able to soft land on the moon, then lower Earth orbit part it becomes easily tameable. That is one part. Other part is this achievement will make space exploration, science, technology, and all the particular avenues that come up in the term of STEM when you are teaching the students. So it will open big avenues. It will open those places where they will be aspirers, they will be dreamers. Those aspirants, those dreamers, they will become the next stage space innovators. So it's not just about the just right after the landing what are going to achieve. It's about after the landing what big thing can happen with the country. And on a global scale, obviously we are going to put up a big example that with such a frugal budgets, with such constrained development conditions, and with better planning.
Also, for better understanding, what makes the South Pole and areas near the South Pole so attractive for exploration?
South Polar region is important because there is a possibility of finding water ice there. There is speculations that the southern polar region, there are some parts there which may not have seen any kind of sunlight for last million years. So there is a possibility that when meteorites were, hitting hard on the lunar surface, they brought water with them, and that is still there in the form of ice. So once we confirm that, once we get our reach to that particular part where we are able to access that water ice, we can get water, we can break the water into hydrogen and oxygen, and that can convert into fuel, and we can plan to have a base there, which can be the future launch pad for interplanetary missions, because launching from moon is much easier than from the earth, because gravity is one-sixth of earth, and also we don't have atmosphere there. So same launch vehicle, let's take example of LVM-3. LVM-3 is 6,40,000 kg launch vehicle, but the capability to launch a payload is just for 4,000. But if we take the same launch vehicle and assemble there, and we take a lift of possibilities from moon, from the lunar terrain, because the gravity is less and because there is no atmosphere, we can carry bigger payloads. So this opens the gateway to the interplanetary travels. Exploring the Mars will become much easier.
A soft landing, of course, is a Herculean task. How does the craft slow down on the moon?
See, actually, there are four engines, four thrusters on our Vikram lander. So once we will given the command to the lander that okay, fine, let the power descent begin, and we leave everything for the onboard autonomous system, then thrusters will be fired, and all the four thrusters will be fired. So it's this way. Thrusters are on this side, and our Vikram is moving in the forward direction. So the thrusters will fire in this particular direction. That is the action part of it. This action will create a reverse reaction. That reverse reaction will slow down our Vikram. So it will be at 1600 meters per second, around 1600 meters per second when we'll start that particular descent phase. And gradually, by firing of thrusters, it will be brought down to one fourth of that horizontal speed. So slowing down can be done. It will be done in two parts. One will be the rough braking phase, where this will happen when we are going from 1600 to around 400 meters per second. The second one is fine braking, where we will be bringing it to a standstill, and then will be the touchdown, the final touchdown sequence when we are going to put it on the lunar terrain.
What would you say is the exact mission life of Chandrayaan-3 on the moon, and what can we expect?
See, actually, the mission life on Moon depends on how you are going to manage the lunar nights. Lunar nights are very harshly cold, so the electronics on board will not be able to sustain if you don't have any heating unit available. And for heating unit, there are two possibilities: either you use the electrical power or the batteries to run the heaters, or you use radioisotope heating units. So right now, ISRO is not using any radioisotope heating units. It's right now development project. I have been part of it. I have worked on that way back in 2012 when we were planning for interplanetary missions. So we were working on radioisotope thermoelectric generators and radioisotope heating units. Right now there is an MOU where ISRO and BARC, Bhala Atomic Research Center, they are working on that particular developmental project, and maybe in the next few missions we'll be seeing that part. But right now we don't have that. Means once the sun sets on the lunar terrain, we don't have sunlight, we don't have electrical power, means our electronics is not going to have that temperature control thing. And if temperature falls down, because it has to kept at around, let's say it has to kept around room temperature, the heaters have to be up. If it's not there, those 14 harsh cold nights, they are going to kill the electronics. But still, the commitment is just for 14 days. But if so happens that when the sun again comes up, and again when the power starts generating, if we come out of that hibernation mode of the electronics and systems boot up, that will be a added bonus advantage, we can say. But right now it's just committed for 14 days. But if you compare this with the Luna 25, unfortunate event that it didn't land properly, it got crash landed. But if we compare, Luna was having radioisotope heating units. It was planned for 1 year. So what they were going to do, they were planning that for 14 lunar days when sun is shining, they will be using solar energy. And when they are lunar nights, which are very cold, when there is no sun, they'll be using the radioactive heating units to keep the temperatures up.
Could you also tell us about the tracking support being provided for this mission? How is ISRO in touch with multiple stations across the world?
So ISRO is not taking any chance this time. ISRO is in contact with the complete total global deep space network, whether it's ESA or NASA. We are using ground stations from all over the globe. We have our own Chandrayaan-2 orbiter right now in orbit around the moon. We are taking its help. We have our propulsion module. See, actually, the situation is once we commit for the soft landing part of it. So once we get into that particular descent phase, power descent phase, then we have to land it. And let's say there are some abnormal situations that can be we are cruising, but we find that ourselves we can find ourselves somewhere in middle of our, let's say, a crater. And if we touch down in a crater, let's say we have a very soft landing, a perfect landing, but we are in a crater and the ground stations are not visible to us because it is creating a hindrance that because the upper wall, the wall that the crater will create, we are into the crater, so we can't see to the ground stations. Then we're going to take help of our Chandrayaan 2 orbiter. So it will be like a communication from our lander to the orbiter, and orbiter is going to communicate back to the ground stations. That is one part. Other is, see, on Earth right now, even Earth is revolving and rotating. So we can't always, our ground stations can't directly have a look at the Chandrayaan 3 Vikram. So that's why we are taking help of all the possible global deep space networks, the big antennas that are there, which look into the space and have radio communication 24/7. So that's how the links have been made, so that we never lose the sight of Vikram even for a single second for whole this duration.
Also, how does the spacecraft intelligently and autonomously decide how and when to land, and on what basis will Chandrayaan-3's Vikram lander select its landing spot?
Everything has been already fed into the system. Only decision making will be can comparing the images and just finalizing, right, this is the exact spot that is already available in my onboard memory. And the algorithm has all the details. It's like it has been already told that you have to do this, and if something goes wrong, these are the following possibilities. Take care of each part of it. If thrusters are not under your control, first correct the thrusters. If attitude control phase is creating problem, then take care of it. The problem is this whole thing, all the sensors will be firing, they will be sending information, thrusters will be firing, they will be creating thrust, and the measurement devices, the velocity meters, the altimeters, they will be measuring, they will be sending the data. This whole thing will be happening at the same moment, and that has to be managed. But everything has been put in an algorithm with the conditions of if this happens, you have to go this way. If not, take the proper actions. So it's like we are going to command that right now you have to enter into the autonomous phase. Once it enters into the autonomous phase, then that algorithm will take over and it has all the information required to take proper decisions. That's why we have so many cameras on board. We have so
Right.
many sensors, so many velocity meters on board.
All right, Mr. Purohit, thank you so much for joining us on WION with your insights on this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.